Hello, everybody, and welcome to the media show on the Pod TV network. I'm Nick Pellavita, and I'll be your moderator for today's show. In today's show, we're going to be discussing Elon Musk and the media. We know that he's had a lot of attention being placed on him because Elon has, of course, runs Twitter, but also influenced the election quite a bit. So with that, we're going to bring in from Canada, Sasha Starr, to see what his thoughts are on the media show and with our friend Elon Musk. What are your thoughts about Elon? Did he make a difference in this election, Sasha?
Yes, I do believe that he made a huge difference in this election by investing $200 million that no perhaps other American could do, but he did, and that obviously influenced the election. To what degree, it's hard to say, but it definitely did. Now, he is a little bit more than just investor in this election. Obviously, he is getting very close to the paramount of power in the United States. In fact, you may think that he is now second in command after Donald Trump. And with two such strong personalities, it just remains to be seen how long this alliance will last and how it will evolve and so on. It's all, I'm guessing, that to say. I'm surprised about one thing, that Trump is very being close to a position of Israel and Jewish people. And surprisingly, that Musk, being a Jew, he never, ever made it clear his position on Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Of course, it's a very controversial issue for many reasons, but he could at least acknowledge that fact. First of all, his grandfather, whose name he's got, Elon, it's ancient Hebrew name. He's got it from his grandfather, who was observant Jew. So even that Musk himself is absolutely, probably, I would say, not religious person of any kind, but I would expect him to just acknowledge that, and that would help a great deal to smooth out this horrible pro-Palestinian demonstrations in U.S. as well as Western Europe and what's happened in Amsterdam just a few days ago. But he is mum on that question at all, so that's a little bit disappointing.
Well, it seems like we have the oligarchs here in the United States. We also have them down in Australia. So I'll bring in our resident oligarch, Shaquille Latmer, and see what he thinks about his good buddy, Elon Musk, and his takeover of the media. So what are your thoughts?
I didn't actually know that Elon Musk was Jewish or had a Jewish background, so I wasn't aware of that. Look, I can't imagine that the relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk is going to be a bromance that lasts for generations. I think this will be somewhat short-lived. I would hope, for the sake of the United States, that doesn't blow up too spectacularly over the next 4 years. I dare suggest that they're probably both using each other a little bit. But, they probably have differing ideas, but they're somewhat heading in the right direction, or the same direction in what they think is best for the United States. So, maybe they'll make a team, but, they don't want to be too close for too long. And that would, I think, make Donald Trump feel as though his presidency is being undermined by somebody who is the wealthiest person or one of the wealthiest people that's ever lived. On the other hand, Trump doesn't want to make an enemy out of him because you don't want to lose that support. So it's probably a fine line that they both have to play. I think what's very interesting, though, is that Elon Musk's pick for Senate Majority Leader wasn't who the Republicans voted for. And so that is a testament, actually, to your process, that it's not for sale completely.
And I got a question for everybody here and everything, and this is actually for probably more for Shaquille and Sasha because they study investments more than I do and all along those lines. But Elon Musk has been has many companies at his disposal, Tesla being one of them, but he is also the voice behind X and everything along those lines, what used to be Twitter. But I understand that after the election, a lot of people mass migrated away from Twitter and X. Apparently they had like a mass exodus of people that were feeling that they didn't like Elon's control, and they went to this new company that I actually just recently signed up for. I don't know anything about the company, so if y'all want to inform me about the company, tell me what the heck is Blue Sky, because apparently that's where a lot of people are.
So this is the idea that liberals have come up with. They've gone, look, Threads was an absolute disaster. Idea, let's set up another one and call it Blue Sky and use other people's money because that's what they always do. So, get over yourselves. People don't look. I never was interested in having a Twitter account because I don't have time for that crap, right? So I've never bothered with an account. Now, all these people like, you don't like it, you should buy a company or start your own. He buys the company. You get an election you don't like, oh, well, I'm going to sign off of Twitter. I mean, talk about being a spoiled, petulant child. That's what the left needs to do is grow up.
Okay, well, Rick, what's your take? You're on the.
That's not directed at you,
So
Rick.
my wife has freaked out about. We're kind of on a news diet in this house because the news just freaks her out too much, and she wants me to be way less active on Twitter because she's afraid that there'll be repercussions at some point. I'm like, no, there's thousands of people who say the same shit that I do, but in order to mollify her, I'm backing off of Twitter a little bit, and I did join Blue Sky as a gesture to my wife, and Blue Sky seems fine. It's easy to join. The people are more liberal and friendly, and there are fewer people who annoy me per capita than Twitter, and it's fine.
That's because Blue Sky censors the conservatives on their platform. That's what they do.
How do they censor them? How do they censor them? If I go on there and I want to say a bunch of MAGA stuff, what happens?
Well, from my understanding, from what I've been told, is that it's like Twitter of the old days, that stuff gets taken down. But look, if I only ever hang out with right-wing people, and I'm always hearing right-wing stuff, it's going to distort my view. If I only hang out with left-wing people, it's going to distort my view. What I have seen so many liberals do, especially in this last election campaign, is as soon as they find out something that they don't like, they switch it off. Like you yourself, you were really unhappy with New York Times over the Siena poll, but it turned out that those polls were actually pretty accurate.
That's
right?
True. Yeah.
So that's the thing that a lot of people look. It's human nature, I guess. I mean, I'm not going to want to sit there and watch some left-wing drivel about how bad the finance industry is and all stockbrokers and futures dealers are the parasites of the world. Okay. Generally speaking, I'm not going to want to watch that. But sometimes I want to know what people are saying about people like me.
But Shaquille, the flip side of that, because I've even, as you know, I'm probably considered more progressive, but I've definitely got Patriot Pride on my newsletter feed, and I've got a number of other right kind of things on my newsletter feed and everything on my email feed, because I like you, I like to know what the different viewpoints are and everything. Now, what I've heard, and we used to have a show on the network, I'm hoping that it'll come back and everything. He was having some issues outside of politics and outside of life that caused him to go away. But we had a gentleman that was doing a show that was very conservative, Jeff Ahern, and he was very active on Rumble. It is my understanding that Rumble is what you're saying Blue Sky is, but it was on the right, because Rumble was definitely known as more of a right-leaning kind of.
Let's be clear, and I hope Jeff comes back, because I used to love his show. It was always very amusing. Well, let's be clear what we're talking about, right? Left-wing media, what they want is they want people who don't agree with them to be censored. Rumble, the reason it's considered to be right is because you're not censored. You can say what you want to say, you can express your view, and you're not going to be censored. There's a difference. The difference is between people who want the freedom to oppress others and people who want freedom for everybody to enjoy freedom together. Both sides will argue that that's them.
So when I joined Twitter, I didn't join it to be informed about shit. I joined it because that's where all the comedians were, and I wanted to read a bunch of jokes, and I wanted to post my own jokes. Then it turned into a news source, and then Musk bought it and turned it into a News Plus, everybody who got kicked off, before Musk bought it, they come back and and here's my policy for who I mute and who I don't on Twitter. If I'm not going to learn something new from somebody and they annoy me, I'm going to mute them. If somebody has 250 followers and they just parrot the latest MAGA line, I don't need to hear from them. But if it's Gunther Eagleman, who has like tens of thousands of followers, very conservative, very MAGA guy, but I might learn what MAGA's thinking from him, I can't mute him because then I've lost perspective.
You lost perspective. Hey, but Rick,
But don't you think that we all feel the same when we listen to people on the left go on about misogyny and sexism and racism and this and that all the time? Don't you think we feel exactly the same? And sit there and go, look, you can repeat the same stuff as what we're hearing on mainstream media.
Would you need to hear the same thing from 2,000 liberal accounts, or could you safely mute a bunch of the small accounts who have nothing new to say, who are just parroting the bigger accounts?
Well, this is what I have said to certain panelists who have been on other shows that we're on, that they're repeating word for word the press reports that Democrats release to mainstream media. And they don't think that they're doing it, but they're repeating exactly the same points using exactly the same language. And I point that out, and I'm the conspiracy theorist.
And the repeating is a waste of time.
Repeating can be a waste of time. Just really quickly, because I had a question for Adam. One of the complaints that I heard about Twitter in the early days of Twitter, and I don't know, Sasha may have the same idea, was the fact that it was so quick, so fast. And Adam, you are a professor and everything along those lines. So that's where I got frustrated, was there would be something that would be very interesting that I would see on Twitter, but then trying to find it again, it wasn't as easy as trying to find it again on Facebook or Instagram. So that was the big complaint that I had about Twitter, was that it was so fast that it might see something and be like, that was very interesting, I need to get back to that. But then it was like trying to dig through it because it was so fast and everything along those lines. So is that what your students have noticed as well? Because that was my big complaint about Twitter, was it was so like rapid fire at you.
Well, that's certainly a legitimate issue, but I think what most people were complaining about is that in or around 2020, Twitter was censoring conservative voices and therefore interfering with the election. And Musk helped balance that, because if you went on Twitter and you said something, for example, questioning the origins of the coronavirus or the efficacy of vaccines, you were censored. And that censorship was done in conjunction with the Biden administration. Now, as far as Elon Musk goes, one thing people have to realize about Musk is this. All right, if you look at the federal government in the United States, one thing you will notice is that the government is controlled largely by agencies. And the agencies are controlled by very fat people who are bureaucrats, who waste trillions of dollars of our money. You can find them typically dining at McDonald's or refilling their diabetes medication. They're a bunch of inefficient, fat, annoying people who waste our taxpayer dollars. The Department of Government Efficiency that Trump is setting up with Musk and Ramaswamy is going to cut upwards of $1 trillion, perhaps $2 trillion from our spending. And that's part of the problem. We can't just keep focusing on, should we do this with taxes or that with that? We need to focus on reducing government spending. And I've always said the line item veto was a perfect way to do that. But in Clinton versus New York, the Supreme Court, by a 6-3 margin, invalidated under the presentment clause. But Musk is going to help us get a slimmer government, both literally and figuratively, with the help of RFK Jr. as he ushers in a new era of preventative medicine in this counther.
Well, I got a question for everybody here and everything along those same lines. One of the big complaints that I've had,
and Ukraine won't be able to misbehave anymore, by the way.
I've had it for a number of folks on this, not just this network, but in general, is that I understand the idea of kind of thinning out the government and making the government more efficient, but there is a major organization, Nick kind of alluded to them, with AARP and everything, that I don't know that you can eliminate them and everything. So all of this eliminating government, what are we going to do about eliminating lobbyists? Because lobbyists, whether it's AARP or whether it's NRA or whether it's a number of other folks, that's the part of government waste that I don't know how you're going to eliminate that.
That's a separate.
The government.
That's a separate issue.
Lobbying
regarding lobbyists. But look, I work in academia, and it's very similar to government. They have people in positions that are completely wasteful and inefficient, and it wastes taxpayers' money. For example, in academia, they have the vice president for institutional advancement, for diversity and inclusion, for academic enrollment. It's all a bunch of nonsense. And our government is run by agencies, and you will see at these agencies positions and people who are incompetent and inefficient. When I say they're fat, what I mean is not so much literally. I mean that they are so inefficient in how they do their work, in what they do, and in why they do it, that they're not necessary. If we don't trim the government, then we are not going to trim the debt.
They build the inefficiency in deliberately, in my opinion. What the federal government should do in the
That's
United
correct.
States, more than any other country, is it should recognize that it's actually not supposed to take such a big role. A lot of the things that it's doing really should be state level issues. So if you want to administer the taxes and then give the money to the states, do that, make yourself smaller.
Agreed.
I have a quick question to you. Among us, you're the only one who directly involved in education, and you know what's horrible things happening in the American educational system, in university in particular. All this talk about diversity, inclusion, equity, and all these other wonderful things. Why is that? I think it influenced somewhat a result of the election, but why it wasn't put by anybody on forefront of what it's all about?
Are you saying why does it exist? Why was it?
Education a bigger issue in the election?
Yeah, why it was sort of like played down, because it's obviously frustrates a lot of people. I have 2 grandchildren who are at universities here in Canada, and it affects them just as well. So I'm surprised why not it wouldn't become a bigger theme of the election.
I don't think it was a big theme in the election because I believe that there was already such a huge groundswell of support over that fact. I think it was fairly axiomatic to people that education has become a serious problem. It's become a problem because of administrative bloat. There are far too many unnecessary administrators, particularly mid-level administrators. And as a result of that, you have, budgets that are way out of control. You could cut at my college, for example, you could cut probably 10 to 20 million right off the top by eliminating middle managers, mid-level supervisors, and offices of like diversity and inclusion, innovation, technology. That's what's happening at the federal government too, by analogy. You have agencies that are either unnecessary, or within agencies you have positions that are unnecessary, and you have people administering federal law that are incompetent and inefficient. As a result, part of the debt is the result of dedicating so much money to a very inefficient enterprise.
So there's another issue with college costs, which is state governments have been stingier in funding state colleges. My state, for instance, Colorado, the state likes to give money when the football team does well. And right now, our football team is kicking ass. We got Deion Sanders. We're 8-2. We're ranked 16th in the nation. So, but I remember the years, there was 1-2 year span where we won one game, and the legislature cut us off. The library couldn't buy books back in the time when people read books.
Well, the state of Colorado.
Why is that then a federal?
In Colorado, the cancer in Colorado is your Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold. She is the worst Secretary of State in the history of this country. She tried to get Trump thrown off the ballot. She interfered in democracy. She's incompetent. And the paradigm of what I'm talking about, inefficient, incompetent bureaucrats who have no business being in power or even existing in that position.
But there are a bunch of forces on universities. One thing that I think is interesting is the universities are posh now. That, when I went to school, it was $1,500 a year, room and board.
So let me ask you a question, Rick.
Rick's right. He's right.
You talked about the lack of funding at a state level for state-run universities. Why does that become, or why should that be, a federal taxpayer issue?
I know why it happens.
If the state receives the money the way that I proposed, make the federal government knock it down to the small size it was supposed to be. And if it wants to administer its revenue by just handing the money to the states proportionally to what the states were supposed to be entitled to, let the states deal with it. Now, if one state doesn't deal with education as well as another state does, well, then they're going to lose business to the other state. As for the overbloating of universities, absolutely, when you see these universities spending ridiculous amounts of money on athletics and on all these different things to make themselves attractive. The reality is that you can teach somebody something far quicker at a far cheaper price. And that's why I am all for private schools, all the way down to primary schools or elementary schools, as you call them there, middle schools, high schools, universities, the whole lot, because private enterprise wouldn't waste the sort of money that these big universities are wasting today.
That's
And
right.
not only are they wasting money, they are wasting people's time. You get these young, bright people straight out of high school with great marks, and you waste their time by making them learn about all of this rubbish that is of no relevance and no assistance whatsoever. You get them, they come in for a job interview. You sit down with the person. Hey, you've got a master's in applied finance. That's excellent. What have you been doing? Well, you know, we did bond pricing, we did derivatives pricing, and I did gender orientation, and I did First Nations, native rights. Like, what am I supposed to do with that as an employer? This is the problem with universities. They're teaching people.
I have a crazy theory that for 50 years and more, universities have been a productivity sink. The productivity's been increasing since World War II by leaps and bounds. We have too much productivity, so you sink kids into a university for 4 years or 6 years and remove their productivity from the system while they F around and try to get laid like I try to do.
And then you get some kid who comes up to me and says, hey, listen, I know I can help you. I can help you run your business more efficiently. I say, oh, really? What sort of qualification have you got? Oh, I did a Bachelor of Business. Great. Excellent. And who taught you? Oh, my university professor taught me. Really? And what businesses has your university professor run? Oh, nothing. Oh, you're going to tell me how to run a business? Go away. And this is the problem. This like thing with education and not practical experience. You need a bit of both. And I would dare suggest that practical experience gets you much further than education. Learn what you have to learn on the job. To hell with university and colleges and the waste of money.
There's one more quick thing, which is we have a system that does that, and that is our MBA system. Most people who go for their MBA in the U.S. stop out after their undergrad degree. They work in business for a couple of years, and then they get their MBA, and that's actually a pretty good system that you're combining workplace experience with education. You alternate back and forth, and that should be more of the norm for lots of different areas of education.
Well, the focus of universities should be on practical skills training, because employers care about what you can do for them, not what you simply can regurgitate or what you know. And the reason that state governments are defunding a lot of state universities, and you see this in North Carolina, is because of the woke policies that they have embraced, that state governments or board of regents have really bristled at and are now decreasing funding because of that. And I can tell you, as a part of the Georgia state university system, although I can't get into specifics, I can tell you change is coming very, very soon to Georgia.
Same as Colorado. So Colorado, red state for the most part, big square state, with two little dots, Boulder and Denver and maybe Aspen, that are blue in a sea of red. And so the rest of the state is, what the heck are you hippies doing in Boulder? They don't like giving money to a bunch of commies. Not
that's
that
right.
Really, so.
Well, I can tell you from a practical.
Well, that's really the same for California too, and New York. If you have a look at voting patterns, California, if you have a look at this last election, California's red. It's only those coastal cities. Same thing with New York.
How does a major in women's studies help you get a job?
Wait, I had a minor in women's studies, and I got a job on the Man Show. And
that's because you wanted to study women, Rick. So let's just be real.
But that's also because, Rick, you were applying for a job in a liberal
studies.
You were applying for a job in a liberal environment. See, government agencies, liberal media, things like that. They're going to think this is great. Oh, you did feminist dance theory and feminist poetry interpretation. That's awesome. When you apply for jobs with people that are result oriented, They don't have time for that crap, and they're not interested in it.
And that's what
I'm an engineer. I want to know that you can actually create the engineering drawing and actually bring the thing to fruition. I don't want to know about 19th century French poetry.
I agree with Shaquille on this.
He's 100% right.
From a practical standpoint. See, we're hiring like 3 or 4 people a month at our company, and what we're hiring from is 2 specific universities. Utah Valley University, no one's heard of it. But the reason we're hiring from them, they have a certified financial planner program. And we're looking to hire people that have CFP or getting their CFP designations, getting their securities license. In other words, it's a really good program. They're getting the people prepared to become financial planners. The other place we're hiring is BYU, Brigham Young University. They have an actuarial department, and we need actuaries to run our numbers on our qualified plans. So we go for, as an employer, we go for specific universities that have specific program tailored to what we're doing. Now, history, political science, end up in the trash can. They won't even get an interview. Why? Because where do you go to work with those types of, how do we even work with those type of majors? We can't. And so the thing is, the real problem is the universities do need to gear up their programs to what employers want to do. And if they don't, we're just not going to.
So this is what happens when you go to a specialty place, right? So I can tell you from my own experience, because I was so young, I wanted to get my license to deal securities as quick as possible. And the quickest way wasn't to complete a 3-year degree, which was actually a 5-year double degree. That wasn't the quickest way for me to do it. The quickest way for me to do it was to do it through the Financial Institute of Australia or the Securities Institute of Australia. The Australian Financial Markets Authority or the Securities Institute of Australia. So I did a double through them. First course I did was in insurance. I didn't want to do insurance because it wasn't relevant to trading the markets, but it was a necessary part of the thing. So we did general insurance, specialized insurance, then how to price things up. That was the first module. Then I did derivatives trading, equities trading, how to price derivatives, how to read bond yields, all this sort of stuff, right? Smashed through the course, got my authorization to trade. Okay. Now, I've then looked at, well, what if I go back to university and do an undergraduate bachelor? Why would I bother? I can do my master's now. If I want to get my CIMA, that's going to take less than 12 months. I can get an MBA. I'm already qualified for that. Why would I bother going back and doing an undergraduate? But what I have got is 20 years worth of experience running businesses. Now, I would make the argument, because I'm 40, I would make the argument that if you did it the other way around, and you went from being 17, 18 when you finished school, you go on to do a double degree, then you try and do a master's, which you hope is going to be accepted as a PhD thesis, or you have to go and do a PhD and do a research thing. You're not getting out of there until you're sort of 30. You've got all of these qualifications, and you know what it qualifies you to do? Nothing in the private sector. It qualifies you to be an academic. That's right, what it qualifies you to do. And that's the problem. If you're teaching these kids that, hey, if you've got a PhD in something, that's going to be amazing. Well, I tell you what, I know PhD economists. I know people with PhDs in all sorts of financial things, and I wouldn't let them anywhere near the trade desk. No way. You get away from the computers, go and write an analyst report.
Right. And that's why the goal of a university should be to increase the market value of its graduates, because that's the only way it justifies the tuition, the short and long-term market value. But they don't do that. They often teach theory and knowledge, and they don't give students the competencies or skills that they can succeed on the labor market. I teach law classes at Georgia College, okay? I am a practicing lawyer for 25 years. So my students practice law in the classroom. They draft all the litigation and transactional documents they will see in practice so that when they go out into the world, they can do things for employers to increase their value and be marketable. Most professors do not do that because they're living in a world of theory where their own research and their own agenda matters more than the practical skills that students need. The federal government should crack down on universities by not giving out federal loan money to universities unless they can show that the employment outcomes justify the debt that these students are incurring.
By the way,
everybody on this panel.
Let me tell you how tough it is to compete in mock trial type of organizations and beat some of the universities that you guys beat. So congratulations are worthy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I got a quick question for everybody on the
Wait,
panel.
before you go on, in 1987, a book came out called Cultural Literacy that set America on fire. Everybody was talking about it. It presented a bunch of general knowledge across all subjects that every American should know, that so we'd have an educated populace. But that was 37 years ago. And the way we learn and what we know has completely been disrupted. And so I would kind of agree with Shaq and Adam that cultural literacy idea, that everybody gets filled with a liberal education with these shared facts, it doesn't work anymore.
Well, part of that problem.
So Rick, because you're right there in California, I want you to just to have this little experiment, okay? Walk down the street, go up to 10 strangers and ask them how many stripes there are on the US flag. I can guarantee you that very few of them will tell you it's 13. You ask them what the stripes represent, they're not going to be able to tell you. Ask them how many stars are on the flag, they're not going to be able to tell you. Last time I was in America, I asked a few people in California how many states there were in the United States. Most of them couldn't tell me that there was 50 states they didn't know. Okay?
Yeah, but
I'm not trying to bag out academics. I think that there are some things in academics, especially theoretical stuff, where we need them. People like Einstein, he's never going to he would never be employable outside of academics, but we need people like him. That's absolutely great. But what I'm saying is that we don't need people to be lifelong. Well, okay, but you know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say.
His theories while working in the patent office.
You know what I was trying to say, but there are academics that are going to spend their whole life in academia, and I don't have a problem with that. But I think we're setting people up for failure when you allow them to learn things which just don't have any practical application in the real world. And this is where the inefficiency comes from. And then what do? Well, private enterprise and small business owners don't want them. Then they go and work in government, and then they slow that down, and then there's even more waste.
Teaching theory is not.
Hold on a second, everybody, because I've been trying to make a point and everything.
All right,
one of the things that with private enterprise and everything, there is a major private enterprise industry that's making tons of money. I actually work for one of the companies when they're actually employing folks, but that won't be back till January and everything. But whether it's Pearson or whether it's Measurement or whether it's a number of others, it goes beyond college. It goes to grade school, and a lot of people are learning standardized methodology and everything like that. And even though I work for the company, I do have a problem with that system and everything along those lines. So that's another part of what goes on. I think that even Adam would agree that we've got to get past this standardized testing, because a lot of teachers on both the college and the high school level are teaching to the test. They're not even
right. Well, here's
things.
The thing. It's in academia, and Shaquille is right. It's okay to teach theory. It's not so much what you teach, it's how you teach it. What skills are you developing when you teach theory? Are you teaching critical thinking skills, writing skills, research skills, creativity, all right, intangible skills? So whatever subject matter you teach, however theoretical, you can integrate practical skills instruction that is transferable to different contexts. The problem with a lot of professors in academia is that they are theory exclusive, and they care more about students adopting the professor's point of view and regurgitating information rather than developing the kind of practical skills. You could take a gender studies course and develop practical skills if you do it the right way, but you have to integrate practice with theory. And quite frankly, I'm one of the few professors who does that, and that's a shame.
Well, I know quite a few professors that do that at Durham, at both Duke and Central, and a number of
Well, good for them then.
So back to Shaq, those people who don't know how many states there are, or that there's 13 stripes on the flag, if you ask those same people who Travis Kelce's girlfriend is, 100% of them would know that. And who's to say that that's in our current culture, that's less important? Like Plato's Cave.
I'll say it.
Hold on. In 1987, the guy who wrote Cultural Literacy wanted everybody to know Plato's Cave, that the idea that we don't see the world as it is, that we see some dim reflection of the world. And that's, everybody knows that, but the term for it now is information bubble. So
Well, Rick, let me ask you a question.
I'll say it, Rick. Sorry, Adam. You go and then I'll respond.
I was just going to ask one question. Thanks, Jack. I was just saying, Rick, if you go outside and you look at a tree, is it really a tree?
Yeah, I mean, within reason, yes.
Well, I mean, if you're taking a philosophy class and you studied Berkeley, he would say it's a tree only because you've been taught that it is that thing, but you don't know the thing in and of itself. And Kant would say,
yeah,
so
but the modern version of that, you don't need Berkeley. What you need is like the Matrix. Like the modern version of that argument is that a tree, or are you in a vat somewhere seeing a simulation of a tree?
Right, exactly. But either way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you can come out of college and be able to do things in reality that make you a valuable asset to the economy. And when you are taught gender studies and lesbian dance theory, you become not only not an asset to the economy, but you become a liability to yourself with the non-dischargeable debt you're incurring. It's a scam, and it should be stopped by the federal government.
Well,
I want to come back to this issue that Rick. Hang on. I want to come back to what Rick actually asked me though. So, look, it's not like I'm a history buff because I was never particularly interested in history. But I think there are certain things that people should know, and it shouldn't take some smart-ass 35-year-old Australian guy to come over to the United States to teach Americans more about their country than what they know, which is how old I was when I first came to the US. Okay. There are some really, really important things that I think that Americans should know about their country, such as how the country was founded and why, such as the fact that the British that had gone over there had gone over in large part because of their desire for freedom, that many of the arguments and fights that have happened throughout US history has been about one group trying to get out from the oppression of another group of people. So this is pretty important, and it's fragile. Because, I say this and people always get upset with me when I say it. But peace is not and has never been bought with diplomacy. Peace has always been bought and paid for with bloodshed. And we should remember the blood that was spilt for the peace and the relative security that we have. And that goes for America's closest allies in the United Kingdom and Canada and Australia and New Zealand and many of the other countries. Because what we have is really special and was fought for generations before us. So when we have young people that know absolutely nothing about the history and foundation of the country, that know more about Kim Kardashian's ass than what they know about what's happening in their country, I think that that's a really significant problem. It destabilizes the country. It causes a generation of people to be ashamed, to be ashamed of being an American or to be ashamed of being an Australian. How ridiculous. These are the countries that people have moved from all over the world to, and you've got people that are, that are there for a few generations and they feel ashamed of their own country. We should be proud of what we represent. We should be proud of the ideals and the values, our liberal democracy and the standards and our fairness, how we like to treat each other. We should be proud of that. And if our kids aren't, it's a problem.
You're right.
I have a problem with how history's been taught ever since I took history. History has been taught in a very boring way. The frickin' Pilgrims put me to sleep every time. I go back to Sputnik a lot, but when the Russians the Soviets put up a satellite, the U.S. cleaned up math and science, made science education very effective, and now we live in a tech world. They never cleaned up history, and we don't know shit about history because they never cleaned up how to teach history. So
there's a children's show in the UK. I'm not sure if it still runs, but it was running for quite a while. It was called Horrible Histories, and basically they'd sing songs, they'd do these things, but they would take you through all these different historical things that happened, and of course, through history with witches and, children going up and down chimneys and all this sort of stuff and all the different medical experiments they did and all this sort of stuff. So it was actually a really fun show. And every child that I've ever seen watch that show absolutely loves the show, loves some of the catchy tunes. Look it up on YouTube. You'll see.
The problem with history, both in high schools and in colleges, is that history is no longer being taught. Rather, what is being taught is one liberal professor's interpretation of history and cherry picking that history to advance a political narrative, or a conservative professor's cherry picking of history. There is no balance in education, and the failure of that balance prohibits students from developing their critical thinking skills, learning how to confront different perspectives, learning how to argue against them, learning how to research, learning how to write, and learning how to coexist with people who are different from them. History has become politicized, and as such, history has lost the benefits that its teaching often inculcates in students who should be developing those very skills that will make them marketable.
I'd argue that history's probably always been political. Hold on.
Adam, hold on a second, Rick. Along those same lines, because I am a historian for the Cultural Arts Center that I work for. That's actually one of the designations that they give me, and all along those lines. And one thing that I will say is that I am not just telling the kind of like rose-colored view of what's going on in history and everything. So one of the things that I will say, and other people that work with me will say, is that we are telling the history warts and all, because definitely that is what is not done enough. We have to be able to acknowledge the bad parts of our history, as well as acknowledge what y'all have kind of alluded to with the.
But a lot of history professors are overemphasizing the warts and underemphasizing the progress, and they're doing it for political reasons. Michael Beschloss is a perfect example. Now, you may teach it in a balanced way, but that is the exception, not the rule. What I see happening at universities, and I've worked at 5 of them, is that professors are using knowledge and manipulating knowledge to advance a political agenda at the expense of developing practical skills, such that a 4-year degree is utterly worthless to employers because graduates can't do the things that employers need employees to do. And
that's the reason why I made the comment that I made, is if you've got children or young people, teenagers that are graduating high school and they hate the country that they live in, there's a problem in how it's being presented. In the United States, one of the rawest wounds that the US has is the history of slavery. And that is never something that should be forgotten. It should never be forgotten. However, trying to then suggest that the United States is an inherently racist country, and it's irredeemably racist.
Exactly.
And teaching children that every day, from the time they're 4 or 5 years old and they start kindergarten or whatever your equivalent is over there, to the time they finish high school, what do you expect is going to happen? Rather than telling the story about how the United States overcame that, how the United States got rid of slavery, what the battles were, how they, how far they've come, how welcoming they've been to more people from around the world than any other country. I mean, Canada tries, Australia tries, the United States is the bigger country. They've been incredibly welcoming. The Jewish people that fled Europe after World War I and especially World War II, they didn't have anywhere to go. The United States said, come on in, okay? The Europeans that were displaced after World War I and World War II didn't have anywhere to go. The United States said, come on in. It's the same thing in South America, the South American countries, and etc. Everybody has gone there.
No,
exactly right.
Hold on a second. Shaquille, to your point and everything, one thing that I talk about on the talk is that there is 2 quotes from W.E.B. Du Bois and the other from Booker T. Washington. But Booker T. Washington actually, and he was a well-known everything from agriculture to civil rights and everything, but he actually said the city that I'm in now, Durham, had the sanest attitude of white individuals toward the African Americans in the population. And part of the theory that I have is that the downtown developments of the downtown communities were actually both downtown. They literally were downtown, so they didn't have any choice but to deal with each other. And I even point out Mr. Duke, who was a more liberal landowner. I think he may have owned 1 or 2 slaves, and Julius Carr, who was a more atrocious kind of racist and everything. So even pointing out the contrast of their lifestyles and everything, and how
Let me ask Sasha this question, and then Rick, do you want to go first?
Just quickly, I just wanted to recommend another show that Shaq recommended, a kids' history show. There's a history show for adults that used to be on Comedy Central called Drunk History, and they get somebody shit.
I remember that show.
That great show, and they managed to tell 3 stories from history told by drunk people per half hour. So like you'd get educated. It was all biographical. They'd pick one person, they'd tell their story, they'd garble it, they'd F it all up, but you'd still learn from it, and it was entertaining. And like
But that's just a pub here in Australia on a Friday night, mate. Just come over here, we'll do it for you in real life.
The Tulsa Race Massacre. Nobody in America knew about that. Very few until Watchmen, an HBO show about superheroes, somehow worked it in to their plot line.
Well, I was just judging a movie competition
Well,
without telling the name of the movie, but I did not realize about the Memphis Massacre, and actually the 14th Amendment, you're going to love this one, Shaquille, actually was put into place because of, we think that transsexuals or trans is a new community and everything, but apparently the person that was behind the 14th Amendment was actually a member of the trans community, which I just learned from a recent movie that has been put out talking about that person's history, because they had moved, I think, from Memphis, which was one of those massacres that people don't cover as well, to Louisiana and everything. But then they were the ones that went before Congress in this early time frame and were a self-acknowledged trans person.
I don't think you can look back at history and then try to thrust upon people that lived in a different time the sort of terminology and what it means in today's world. So people cross-dressing throughout history doesn't necessarily mean that they were trans in history, right?
Well, I'll give you an example. First of all, before I get to the example, I have a problem with people saying gay community, trans community. Why don't we just say community? I have a problem with people saying social justice. Why don't we just say justice? But I'll tell you an example involving Ukraine is last semester, I walk onto campus and I walk into my classroom and every student is wearing this little sticker saying, "We support Ukraine," with the colors of the Ukrainian flag. And I said to everyone, I said, well, why do you support Ukraine? And they said, because Russia is going in there and committing genocide. I said, okay. I said, give me one possible reason why Russia invaded Ukraine that would be favorable to Russia. What? There can't be one. What is the history of that We don't know. In other words, they were brainwashed by their other professors that there is only one side to this issue. It's black and white, and you must endorse it. Now, I'm not saying that we should not be supporting Ukraine. I'm saying that the way they were teaching the students was indoctrinating them into a single point of view and into a monolith that eschewed any critical thinking or any nuance, and that hurts students both in school and when they go out on the job market.
Adam, I would like to tell you that this issue is very complicated, because if you really want to dig in and really understand all the history of Russia, of Ukraine, and interaction between Ukraine and Russia, the best source, I'm pretty sure, is Professor, I forgot his name.
Some of the people on your show.
Oh, okay, even people on my show. Adam, you see, the thing is that how deep you really want to understand the problem. If you want to go 5 years back, 10 years back, 100 years back, or 1,000 years back. It's all important, because if you go only 100 years, which is quite enough probably, but not entirely, because you have to understand the difference in mentality between Ukrainians and Russians. The Russians are the product of Mongol invasion of Russia, and for 250 years there was no Russian entity. It was all ruled by Mongols for 250 years. So you understand that their mentality and further development, even after they get rid of Mongol institution, so-called, they still had a lot of parts of their government coming from Mongols' rules rather than European rules, where Ukraine was a part of Europe. They were part of Poland and Lithuanian Union, and for hundreds of years they were part of that argument. And they were part of Christianity, including Western Christianity, same as Poland, which is Catholic, of course. And therefore, to see them as Russian trying to pretend, oh, we are brothers, we are the same people, or so on. No, there are no brothers.
I think what Adam is saying, though, is you've got a bunch of people that know nothing at all about the issue that put on the stickers,
Right.
or like the girls, right, who put their like fish lips. I can't even. I don't know. The fish lips out. This. Put lipstick onto the Ukrainian flag. Put Ukrainian like little tight shorts on, and then twerk, and then put that on TikTok. Now, what's the expectation here? Vladimir Putin's going to see that and go, "Oh, well, because some random idiot in America did that, I better stop the war." That, I think, is what Adam is referring to when he says that you've just got these people that just support whatever the current thing is without having any idea what they're talking about.
If you like this previous approach, I'll tell you why. So, in your opinion, only people who go deep into history and know all details, they can wear something to support of Ukraine. But those who didn't go deep enough or didn't try to get in it, they should not. Then what's your point?
As long as they have a sufficient knowledge base.
What I'm saying is that these people. Hang on, Sasha. What I'm saying is that these people, right, and I'm not just talking about this in relation to the Ukrainian issue. I'm talking about the sort of professional protest movement type of people. They sit there, they protest, they scream, they shout, they hold their placards up. You're okay, cool. This is a problem, and you're trying to bring attention to this issue. Yes, I am. Okay, cool. What do you want us to do? I don't know.
Well, Sasha, I'll give you an example.
Just Stop Oil. You know, the Just Stop Oil guys glue themselves to roads, throw soup at priceless artwork through history. What do you want us to do? We just want to stop oil. Well, you know we can't actually just stop oil. We need to do other things. So what are you suggesting that we do that we're not currently doing?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sasha, I'll give you a perfect example that you can relate to. Last spring on college campuses, these moron 18, 19-year-olds are shouting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," having no concept whatsoever of the history or nuances in that conflict. That is the problem, because the critical thinking skills that universities should be developing, along with other practical skills, should enable these people to discern the complexities in these issues and form informed opinions, rather than sitting up there a Palestinian flag saying "from the river to the fucking sea."
But Adam,
what I don't understand is why the Jewish community didn't stand up for these kids. These Jewish kids at universities that were being bullied and have to lock themselves and barricade themselves in rooms.
Yeah.
And the Jewish community, like, what the hell? That's
and this is at Columbia.
Horrific.
No, but
it shouldn't be happening in our country.
And everything. Hold on a second, we only got a few more minutes to go and everything. But this has been going on for decades. I can tell you that there were a number of people, and Adam, you can agree with me on this and everything, that used to wear, and I was actually supported to some degree of what he was about, but they would wear Malcolm X T-shirts, and they would wear Black Panther T-shirts, and they would also wear Che Guevara T-shirts as well. And to your point, if you ask them, who the heck is Malcolm X? Who the heck is Che Guevara? Who the heck is the Black Panther Party? They couldn't tell you. They were just thinking that the shirts were cool and everything along those lines. So you got a lot of people that are wearing things that are not necessarily, they think that it's cool. They think that it addresses something that they want to address for whatever reason. But a lot of times they don't have a understanding of the conflicts.
That's my point.
Well, this Palestinian protest, it's been well established that most of these protesters are being paid. They're just coming there to get their money. They don't care about the history of the conflict or anything at all. With Ukrainian protest, Shakil, let me ask you this. Let's say you have 100 people who are wearing this Ukrainian ID flags or some other rebellion. So let's see that third of them, 33%, they know deep inside the history of Russia, history of Ukraine, and history of the conflict, and so on. Another third, they know a little bit about the conflict and they understand issues, but not all of them. And the final third, they know that Russia invaded Ukraine and is conducting genocide of Ukrainian people. So, in your opinion, which third is entitled to wear the Ukrainian flags and which are not?
I'm not saying that people are not entitled to wear flags or show support for a country. What I'm simply pointing out is that a lot of people that are claiming to be passionately advocating for something aren't passionately advocating for it because they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay,
That's
so
all I'm pointing out.
Okay,
Right.
you're supposed to examine this 100 people to weed out who don't know enough about the
Sasha, look,
get them
that's
out.
that's not what I'm saying,
What
Sasha.
are
That's
you
not what
trying
I'm
to
saying.
say? Just say
I just said to you. I just said to
please
you.
do.
Why do people want to act like they're passionately in support of something or passionately opposed to something? They act like they have this really deep, lifelong passion about an issue,
Okay, you know what,
and they know
Shakil?
nothing about it.
Some credits. Just understand that a lot of people are aware that what's happened not 1,000 years ago, what's happened right now in the last 3 years, that a huge country with second military in the world with the weapons of mass destruction, namely nuclear weapons, attacked much smaller country and is doing genocide of the Ukraine.
Sasha,
Yes, but that's not the
listen,
point.
Enough, and you
listen.
think
The
that you
point
say
is,
Hang on,
look
hang
at
on,
these
hang on,
protests.
Adam, please, hang on a second. Sasha, please don't take what we're saying personally as an affront to you. Look at what we're seeing with the Palestinian-Israel protests. The people that are protesting on behalf of Palestine are doing so because they believe, when you go and talk to them, they believe that Israel is doing the wrong thing by Palestine. All I am suggesting is that when people are trying to take these passionate positions and they don't know anything about the subject matter, it's not unreasonable for the rest of us to be a little bit dismissive of their feigned passions about these subjects. If I want to know
what
about
is
Ukraine,
your,
if I want to know about, if I want to know about Ukraine, Russia, I'll ring you, and I have done. If I want to know about Israeli and Palestinian affairs, again, I'll ring you. I'll speak to people that know something about the subject matter. That's all I'm saying. Well, that's actually not even me who was saying it. It was Adam that was bringing it up.
wait a sec, you are implying that most of these 100 people who are trying to support Ukraine, they don't know. Why are you implying that? What
Because
number?
I'm not. Oh, hold
How
on,
you
hold on.
can
Let me
propose
say
that?
something. I'm not implying anything or making any statement about Ukraine. I use that and the Palestinian protest example as an example of the current state of education in the United States, which I have repeatedly said on this show. Students are not being taught to research, to think critically, to write, and have other practical skills necessary to succeed in the marketplace, rather being indoctrinated into an ideology that reflects ignorance, okay, not evolution. And that is the problem.
You are wrong.
Incurring figures of debt and not knowing how to balance a checkbook.
I understand your intentions, but your example with Ukrainians or people who support Ukraine is absolutely wrong because they are not indoctrinated by anything. All they know is exactly what know millions and billions of people in the world, that much bigger nuclear power attacked. Yes, it did attack Ukraine, and it's conducting genocide of Ukraine. They are bombarding Ukrainian city, and thousands of civilian people, absolutely innocent people, are being killed
purpose of my example was not to
you?
offend you or to take a position. It was to just use that to underscore the shallowness of
Poor
the thing.
example. Poor example. Use another example. Don't use this.
I use another example. I use the Palestinian protest example.
Well, I'm
With
not.
that, we're going to have to go. We're at the hour, but we do want to thank our panelists from around the world, and we'll see
Bye,
you
everybody.
Bye.